Hi, eighth graders. Today we are going to work on lesson 1-1 problem solving. And it's pretty much just kind of a review lesson to remind yourself how to take notes, to remind yourself how I teach, just to kind of figure out how this whole video thing works. So we are just going to go through a lesson together, and I want you to put this in your notebook. So lesson 1-1 problem solving, this is the first thing you're going to do. And if you're big into your table of contents, you can also put this in your table of contents. Now I'm going to tell you, taking notes and keeping up on your table of contents is a big deal in eighth grade because we use our notebooks a lot. And if you have your table of contents up to date, it's easy to flip back to see what you need to do and where you need to go. So this is lesson 1-1, problem solving. All right, so first of all, problem solving, everybody does it every single day. You problem solve all the time, and there's actually a process for it, and you probably didn't know that when you're solving a problem, you're kind of going through steps a little bit. So the first step of the problem solving plan is understanding. And this means, like, what do I need to know? What information do I need? What's going on in my problem? You're basically figuring out all the things you need to know before you make steps to solve your problem. So understanding what your problem is and all the aspects to it to figure out what's really going on. Now the second thing is to plan. What are you going to do to solve this problem? What are you going to think about? What steps are you going to take? For example, this is one I use quite frequently. If let's say you're at practice that night, you're at baseball practice, softball practice, volleyball practice, basketball practice, football practice, maybe you're at band practice, I don't know, maybe you're at dance, and somebody forgets to pick you up. That's a problem. Maybe you're understanding your problem, you're sitting here thinking, okay, nobody's coming to pick me up. I'm watching for mom, watching for dad, watching for grandma, and nobody's showing up. Okay, that's your problem. You're understanding your problem. The second thing is, what are you going to do to solve this problem? Think about it. What are some things you would do to solve your problem? Some of you would call. Some of you would ask for a ride home. Some of you would maybe walk if it's possible. Somebody would maybe ask a friend. There's so many things you could do to solve your problem. And you probably knew what you do first and then what you would do second. So planning is making that process what is going to work to help solve that problem. All right, number 3 is solve. Okay, so trying your plan. If it doesn't work, what do I need to do differently? So for example, let's say your first idea was to call somebody. Let's say you get on the phone, you call your mom, dad, grandma, whoever's going to pick you up, and they don't answer. So now what? Now what? Now you have to go back to the second one and try something else. Maybe you are going to walk home. Maybe you only live a blocks away. No, I'm just going to walk home. Maybe your next thing is to call somebody else. Maybe your next idea is to ask for a ride. So there's so many different things you can try and go back, try and go back, try and go back. That's the cool thing about the problem solving process. And number 4 is check, rereading it, revisiting the problem. Did it make sense for you to do this? Like for example, if your idea was to walk home and you live 20 miles away, probably doesn't make sense for you to do that. So we have, let's go back. Let's look at them again. We have understanding, planning, solving, and checking. And the one thing that I find out is that a lot of people, like when we do problems at school, a lot of people do not do this. They get here and they stop and they don't check to see if it even made sense. Okay, so for example, if I have a problem and I have 6 minus 2, and you write 8, well, that doesn't even make sense. Some people will stop there and say, oh, I got the answer, it's good. But this doesn't even make sense because we know 6 minus 2 equals 4. So you have to make sure what you're doing makes sense. Okay, so what are some ways and some strategies you can help solve problems? So I just want you to think about what are some ways, if you were given a problem, what would be some things that you do? I know for me, a lot of times, guess and check, that is probably one of the number 1 strategies that we have. Some other strategies are drawing a picture. I love drawing a picture. That's one of my favorite ones for problem solving if it makes sense. I like drawing a picture. I'm a visual person. I like to see. Another thing is like making a table. And this kind of goes along with the drawing right here, kind of goes along together. And there's some other ways that we're going to look at later on in the year. Maybe it's creating an equation, or maybe it's making a graph. There's so many different things, but right now, this is probably a list that you would have as an 8th grader starting your 8th grade year. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start some problems together. And this is an example. So a cookie shop offers 3 varieties of cookies and bakes 5 dozen of each kind every day, Monday through Friday. So that would be 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. How many cookies are baked in 1 week? Or we're going to say this is 5 days. Okay. And we're going to say 4 weeks, we're going to say this is 20 days. We're not going to include Saturday and Sunday. We're going to pretend they're not open. Notice there's 2 questions here. We're going to answer the first one first. Okay. So let's talk about 3 varieties of cookie. Let's talk about 3 different kinds of cookie. So I would probably do chocolate chip. You could do sugar cookie. And then I don't know, what's another one? Monster cookie? Is that a thing? Okay. So let's do those. And then we know that 5 dozen of each kind every day. So for 1 day, here's a dozen, here's a dozen, here's a dozen, here's a dozen, here's a dozen. Okay, sugar, here's a dozen, here's a dozen, here's a dozen, here's a dozen, here's a dozen. Same thing for monster, dozen, 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 dozen. Well, we know in a dozen how many cookies are there. We know there's 12, so we know, okay, that's in 1 day. Same thing with sugar, 12, 12, 12, 12. And monster, 12, 12. We'll get this guy out of here a second. 12, 12, 12. So this is just a way of me kind of drawing a picture. There's other ways that you can answer these types of things. You maybe know that you're going to take, okay, well, what's 12 times 5? We know this is 60. We know this is 60. And we know this is 60. So in 1 day, we know this is just 1 day, remember? So every day they do 5 times. So this is 1 day. So 1 day they do 180 cookies. Okay, that's in 1 day. That's not even 1 week yet. All right, so let's see. So if I know this is 1 day, I would take 180 times 5, because we're going to solve my first one here, times 5. Let's do that. 180 times 5. I'm doing on my calculator just to save time. So I know 900 cookies in that 5 days. That's a lot of cookies. Okay. So now that is just, I'm going to write 5 days here. Okay. So now they want to know in 20 days, or if I go back, I think it asks for 4 weeks, which is 20 days. So we're going to do that. So if this is 5 days, I could go back here. Let's see, 180 times 20. I think it's going to be 3,600. This is going to be 33,600 cookies in 20 days. Another thing I could have did, I could take this times 4 because it's 4 weeks. I mean 4 times. There's so many ways to solve these problems, you guys. So many ways to solve problems. Like I said, I maybe did more work than the normal person would do just to show you that there's many, many ways that this can happen. So, all right, so here's another one. There we go. It's about a roller coaster. A roller coaster is 150 feet high. When the ride starts to go down, a big hill, its brakes are applied at 67.5 feet. How many feet does the roller coaster go before applying the brakes? All right, so I'm going to draw a picture. Okay, so we start, this is 150 feet. Sometimes this pen, let's see. There we go. So 150. Goes down the hill. Its brakes are applied here at 67.5 feet. Okay, I want to know how far this roller coaster went in here before it applied its brakes. So this is another pretty easy problem. You can draw a picture, or you could say, oh, I just know I'm just going to take 150 minus 67.5. Don't forget, when you subtract, you have to line up your decimals. And you're going to have to borrow here, and I'm going to just remind you how to do that again. Doesn't go into zero. Can't take away, can't take away. So this is going to become a 4. 10, 9, 10, 1, 2, 14 minus 6 is 8. We have 82.5 feet. Okay. All right, so here's one for you to try by yourself. Go ahead. Oh, shoot. Not what I want to do. I just want to move him up a little bit. There. All right, so if you had 90 days off of school, how many hours is that? So there's 2 questions here. First, I want you to answer this. Okay, then I want you to answer this. And you can use the answer to this to work with this. So that's why I did that. All right, so you had 90 days off of school. I'm going to let you try this one by yourself. So you can go ahead and pause this. And then we'll start it in a second. All right, so I'm going to get started. If you had 90 days off of school, how many hours is this? Well, first thing I have to figure out how many hours are in a day. So I know there's 24 hours in one day. Okay, so to easily figure out how many hours I had off, I'm going to take 90 times 24. And you know what? I'm going to do that with you. 24 times 90. And you could do your hanging zeros if you want to do your hanging zeros. You can do whatever you want. Let's see. 0, 6, 3, 18, 19, 20, 21. I'm going to make sure that's right. 24 times 90. 2160. Okay. So that's how many hours this was. Okay. Hours. So you have 2,160 hours off. To change that to minutes now, let's change this to minutes. So this is hours. Okay, we know that there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. So I know if 1 hour is 60 minutes, I'm going to take this times 60, and that's going to tell me how many minutes I had off. Oops. I'm going to take that times 60, and I have this. 1, 2, 9, 6, 0, 0. This is how many minutes in those 90 days. All right, so hopefully you come up with something like that. Let me just make sure I had that right again. I'm going to go back through 90 days. How many hours is that? I know one day is 24 hours, so I took 90 times 24. And that gives me this. That tells me how many hours there were in that 90 days. And then I'm going to take how many hours times 60, because in 1 hour there are 60 minutes, and I want to figure out total that. And then this is what I got for minutes. All right, so last thing I'm going to just discuss quick is some phrases that are banned from my classroom this year. Okay, and it's a pretty, not too extensive list. I don't get it. I don't understand, and this is my personal favorite. I try, but there's no work shown. I have that happen a lot. Kids will say, oh, I tried it, but you didn't do anything. You didn't try it, you read it, and you decided you want me to do it for you, and I'm not going to do that. So you have to, before you come to me, you have to show me you've tried something. You have to, because you know what? You could be very close to the answer. You could have missed a step. You could have not done the last step. So there's so many ways that you could be on the way to the right answer, and you have to at least try for me. I don't get it. If you don't get something, you have to tell me what I don't get. I don't get what they're asking. I don't get the process I have to do. I don't understand what's the last thing they want me to find. So you need to expand. If you're going to say these things, you need to expand so I can help you. Please expand for me. And that is all I have for you today. So I hope you took some kind of notes. I hope you wrote down some kind of practice problems, because trust me, practice problems are going to help you in the long run. Remember, this was just a little practice, so I'm excited to see you back in class tomorrow, and we will discuss the lesson a little more. So I'll see you in class.